you so much for coming. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. The time is now 6 p.m. And this joint meeting of Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency Board and the City of Boynton Beach Commission is now called to order. The City of Boynton Beach Commission meeting will start at the conclusion of this joint meeting. Let's proceed to the invocation led by Pastor Bryce Hudson of Christ Fellowship Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Board Member Kelly.
Let's bow our heads and pray together. Father, we invite you in this space to this joint meeting, knowing that you will fill this space. You will give wisdom and discernment where there may not be any. You will bring peace and hope where there is needed. And Father, we are grateful for those gathered here and what they mean to our community. We pray that this community will be a light for all to see. They would see what it means when we come together and desire the hope that only comes from you. Your holy and awesome name, we give this time to you. Your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. We will now turn to our interim city clerk, Tammy Stanzioni. If you could please begin the roll call.
Board Member Cruz?
present.
Board Member McCray?
Present.
Board Member Kelly?
Here.
Vice Chair Turkin?
Present.
Chair Shelton?
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We are now moving on to additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda. Let's begin on my right with Board Member Cruz. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Board Member Turkin?
Nothing, Chair, thank you.
Board Member Kelly?
No, thank you, Chair.
And Board Member McCray?
Nothing, Chair, thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Let's now turn to legal counsel. Are there any updates?
Good evening. Nothing from Catherine Rossmell, Lewis Longman, and Walker on behalf of CRA.
Thank you. Let's now begin informational items and disclosures by CRA board members and staff. We will begin on my left with Board Member McCray.
Thank you, Board Chair. I have nothing for this meeting, but I have something for the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Member Kelly.
No, thank you, Chair.
Board Member Turkin.
I just want to say that we have a park cleanup at the cemetery on the 23rd from 9 to 12 for anyone who wants to assist us in helping and serving our community. And then the other thing I'd like, if I can get consensus from my colleagues, is to look at get some foresight for potential issues with the downtown parking as all these projects come out of the ground. I think it's important that we minimize the amount of impact that we see for these businesses in the downtown already. And so whether that's looking at some type of, shuttle, partnering with the private sector to make sure that they're not taking up all this public parking as these projects get done by their subcontractors and et cetera. I think it's important that we identify and have this foresight to look and see how we can offset the impact of parking from what we'll see, with all these projects coming out of the ground, if that makes sense.
And the cleanup's this Saturday?
The cleanup is Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes.
Okay. And then the potential parking, is it something that you want to add or put it on our workshop agenda when we decide that in the next meeting?
I think it's really an item that, the staff and the CRA can look at.
Okay.
Because we already have one out of the ground, shelling's done for that one. We have, I think, 3 or 4 in permitting now. And so I just don't want these businesses to get impacted if all of a sudden these, contractors, subcontractors are taking up all of that space for potential tenants or even residents in existing parcels. So I think it'd be important to partner with those developers in order to identify how can we offset that? Maybe it's a shuttle to the mall. Maybe it's somewhere else. They do this in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And so I think, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but kind of look and see what other, cities have done to help mitigate that issue.
Yeah, we might have some empty lots that we can use for that
Exactly.
purpose. Okay.
Board Chair, I like to say we need to do it sooner than later. I'm just saying because it's already upon us. I'm all in favor. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we have consensus on moving forward from everyone on that? Okay, good. Let's move on to the next portion of the agenda, public comments. The public comment section of the meeting is for the public comment on all items on the agenda or items that are not on the agenda. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to comment on all items on the agenda. However, the board retains the right to increase or decrease the 3-minute limit prior to the start of public comment. Each public speaker shall be given the same number of minutes unless it becomes necessary to terminate a speaker's comments in order to maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum. Persons making public comment may not assign or donate their public comment time to another individual to allow that other individual time to comment. However, any persons requiring assistance will be accommodated as required by the Americans with Disability Act. Prior to addressing the board, speakers present at the meeting will go to the podium to make their comments, and speakers participating virtually will unmute their device at the time requested. Speakers may be asked to state their name and address for the record. Any person may provide written comments to the board prior to the meeting. Does anyone have any public comment in the room tonight?
Good evening, Harry Woodworth. With the transition on the CRA, I went back and looked at about 20 years of CRA stuff as it applied to different times during the Inca history. If you haven't done that, that'd be interesting. I was shocked at the turmoil, the plans that came and went, the people that came and went, the format of the board that came and went. Whether you agree or disagree with the stuff that Mr. Brown brought to the party, he had a vision. Whether we agree or disagree doesn't matter. He had a vision. What made that vision unique was accompanied by actions that specifically aligned with the vision. And I would just hope that going forward, and we don't have a long history of that maybe we would preserve that. Visions without actions are dreams. Actions without visions are busy work. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone online? I don't believe so, but.
Susan Ori says she's coming.
Oh,
Here, there is nobody online.
Hey, Susan Oyer, Boynton Beach, thank you very much. Looking at 6D, Resolution 26-063, where are these 23
we're in the
hots?
joint meeting for the CRA. I was
So
on
it's the
city.
CRA part?
We're in the CRA first,
Oh,
yeah.
good, then that's even longer, yay, thank you. So looking at the list of events, the ones that I would think you should consider looking at getting rid of, and I'm looking at this as a cost, number of people, social media, press, and how many people are actually sharing on social media. So what is that? They're not necessarily tangible things, but you certainly get a lot of goodwill out of it. So, and then how many people from outside the city, outside the area are coming to these things? So I think you should consider losing, just looking at hard numbers, the MLK, the Say It Out Loud, Pearl Harbor, the Bon Appetit, and the Holiday Parade. The ones that I think maybe you should consider looking at possibly cutting down the number of events would be like the Rock the Plaza and the First Fridays, which I know are very heavily attended, but you know, in the summer, it's really miserable, and I think maybe we should relook at that. The 9/11, I think maybe we should be shifting that to a big anniversary, like on a 5 or a 10-year cycle, not every single year at this point, because you don't see that happening everywhere else anymore either. Not to downplay what happened, but you know, at some point we have to be cycling through this. The ones that obviously are worth keeping are the 4th of July, especially this year with America 250. Memorial Day, which seems to have a great turnout. Pirate Fest, of course, it's one of our key events. Juneteenth. What an amazing bang for your buck that we get for that. That is obviously a great summer program, and it goes over very well. The Egg Extravaganza, Fall Festival goes over very well. Veterans Day, the Night Market, Boat Parade, the tree lighting, and the Taste of Boynton Beach. And the Santa thing, I think we have too many Santas. I think maybe we should narrow it down to one Santa. So as I know you guys are looking to start talking about that going forward, that would be my input for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I think one other thing is the guy who's out there who does the reading program with these kids after school every day, Somebody needs to be doing something to honor this man. He's out there on the stadium, the stage out there right now with a bunch of kids teaching him how to read. How many hundreds of people have learned to read because of this guy? And what are we as a city doing to honor him? I mean, he blows me away, sorry. But he's really great, and what are we doing for him? I mean, do you guys even notice? Every time I come to this building, he's there with kids helping them. So maybe we should be doing something, no matter which group.
Thank you. No one online? You're good? Just to be sure. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Public comment is now closed. Let's now move on to items under new business. The first item is the discussion and consideration of the Residential Improvement Grant Program, which was tabled on April 14th, 2026 meeting to a date certain on April 21st, 2026. If we want to discuss this item, it will need to be untabled. Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion?
Motion to move from the table.
We have a motion and we have a second to untable this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Bonnie, could you open the item, please?
Sure. Good evening, Board. Bonnie Nicklin, Grantson Project Manager. I'm happy to do a quick recap, and if you'd like, I can run through the presentation. At the March CRA Board meeting, the Board they were presented terms for a residential improvement grant. We went through those options and you finalized the terms, so we've simplified that in a presentation just to recap if you'd like me to run through it. And then the next steps would be consolidating these terms into a grant program, which we anticipate bringing back to you at the May CRA Board meeting. And then shortly thereafter, we can launch the program. So if you'd like, I can run through. Okay. So the mission and the goal of the program would be to enhance neighborhood revitalization by providing financial resources that allow residential properties to improve and restore their homes, strengthen community pride, and promote a safe and attractive living environment. And this stemmed out of the CRA's funding to code enforcement officers that are specific to the CRA boundaries and kind of go above and beyond the normal day-to-day for code. So this would be in partnership with them, and we met with code to kind of find out those highest ticket items to address through this grant program. So this will go through the applicant eligibility, program parameters, and eligible improvements. These were the final terms agreed upon. The eligibility pool would be for those who are subject to enforcement and also voluntary applicants. It would only be for owner-occupied properties, no rentals at this time, and only for single-family detached homes. The properties must be free of liens unless the grant can remedy the lien, and same for code violations, no active code cases unless the grant can remedy the violation as well. The third point isn't going to be applicable at this time because it's a brand new program, but it would be limited to one per property address for every 5 years. The funding amount, the board had consensus on $10,000 per property address. There would be a $100 application fee. And the funding reimbursement would be, or disbursement would be direct pay to the contractor. That way it would encourage more participation from homeowners who might be facing those violations. We have identified $100,000 that we can use as a pilot program to launch this fiscal year, and then the board can decide moving forward based on the pilot program success, how they'd like to fund it in future fiscal years. Of that $100,000, $50,000 would be reserved for voluntary applications, and the other $50,000 would be reserved for those who are under code violations. And for the contractor, legal can expand in a little more detail, but we can provide a list of qualified contractors to the homeowners. The CRA would not be in a position to fund deposits. The CRA nor the city would be performing the contracted work, and it was board consensus that if the applicant met all the eligibility requirements of the grant application, that they could be approved administratively by staff. They would not come before the CRA board every month for approval. And the list of eligible improvements is this list. We're trying to make the biggest impact we can with $10,000. So paint, paving, power washing, plants. We're not going to go for sod. And fence staining, repair, tree landscaping, trimming, site triangle issues, and then driveway repair and expansion. And then as far as next steps, we are going to bring back those program documents in May. And if the board has any other direction tonight, we can incorporate that into the program documents. And we're here for any questions.
I have one. Thank you. Bonnie, in regards to receiving these funds, how long will a homeowner have to live in that property before they could, I don't want to fix up somebody's home and I turn around, I look at it, it's on the market for sale.
That's true. With prior executive leadership, we had discussed internally a 2-year.
2 years?
2 years.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it would be paid back.
All right.
My other question would be, is this going to be marketed amongst all 4 districts so that everyone knows about it?
It would be limited to the CRA
CRA.
boundaries.
Oh, the
because
CRA
it's a
boundaries, that's
CRA
right, never
program.
mind. Yeah.
Yes.
I have one other question. It might not have anything to do with this, but who's responsible for the home of the month? I can see that sign pop up every now and then in the community.
I'm not sure.
That's the city, sir. That's the code enforcement department with Candace Stone and Pat Hart.
I thank you for that, but the first time you all put your home of the month sign, I called in because you had misspelled words on it. I'm sorry.
I remember that. I think we forgot the M.
We're good. Thank you.
Oh, jeez.
Stop it.
Oh, jeez.
Clever.
That's a joke.
Are there any other questions from my colleagues? Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion?
I'd like to offer a motion that we move forward with this program, with the items and things that was stated, that we follow this to the letter. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank you,
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Thank you, board.
Thanks for all your work on this.
Yeah. The next item for discussion and consideration is the transfer of the CRA business development promotions to the city, which was tabled on April 14th to today's date. If we want to discuss this item, we need it untabled. Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion to untable this item?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Copen, can you open the item, or Amanda?
Good evening, Board. My name's Amanda Onda, Division Director of Events.
And good evening, Mercedes Coppin, Business Development Manager for the CRA. Tonight we have provided a presentation, if you would like us to review it for you, of the events and promotions. It's a data-driven overview of both CRA and city events. And it would basically present you with data from 2025 so that we can give you actual numbers with attendance. Would you like us to proceed? Okay, great. Pushing it. Oh, sorry, it was off. Okay. So in 2018, the laws changed that govern CRAs that basically removed language stating including but not limited to. With that changed, it basically left some ambiguity regarding how CRAs could fund events. So that's why we're having this conversation tonight. At the February 10th board meeting, legal presented a memo that basically provided a risk analysis of our CRA promotions. The holiday boat parade, Snapshots with Santa, night market, and the spring market were all flagged as high risk primarily because of their connection to holidays, as well as the markets having expanded their growth for what they originally were launched to promote our local CRA businesses. So following that meeting, city and CRA staff met, and we discussed how the city could potentially assume responsibility for some of the CRA promotions. And it was determined at that time that it would not be feasible to allocate additional funding to expand the events budget for the city within fiscal year 26-27, and that accommodating any of the CRA promotions would require some restructuring of the city's current event resources. And that could be done with budget reductions, adjustments, or even eliminations of certain city-hosted events. But the primary goal would be to continue delivering high-quality signature events for our community.
Okay, so we prepared an analysis for you. So we compiled a list of all the citywide signature events, including recreation and arts and culture. As you can see, we have 24 total, including 3 veteran-focused events and our monthly First Fridays at 5.
And for the CRA, we have 12 promotions that are budgeted. All of our activations are produced to spotlight local businesses and encourage community members to shop locally. The majority of our activations do occur intentionally during the summer months, which is typically the slowest season for our local businesses.
To give you a comparison, we researched how many events the surrounding cities execute in a year. So you can see the numbers right there. Some of the numbers in West Palm and Wellington seem high because they have a weekly event similar to our First Fridays. So Placer AI is a new software the city is utilizing. It is a location intelligence platform that uses cell phone data to track attendance of events, where people are coming from and where they are going afterwards. And we use this software to perform the analysis, and you'll see that on the next slide. So this slide represents the citywide signature events. They are in order by budget. We also included the attendance from 2025, any revenue that was gained from the event, the net cost, and finally, the cost per person. In total, the city is currently spending $1,378,000 to execute events.
This is an overview of the CRA promotions. It mirrors the exact spreadsheet that Amanda just referenced for the city. In total, we have $419,000 that is budgeted for the CRA promotions. So for the total, we have 36 signature events between the CRA and the city. The 24 events hosted across the city departments is approximately 1.3 million, with the CRA, like I said, 419,000, for a total of 1.8 million, just under 1.8 million for events. Okay, I need to go into event performance.
So this slide represents the top performing events, including both the city and the CRA, in order by attendance. So if you can see, the Night Market and Pirates Fest both bring over 12,000 people to our city. And then the next slide represents the lowest performing events in order of attendance. The First Fridays, I find the attendance can vary based on the time of year, the band selection, and also the weather plays a big part.
Okay, so basically that data that just highlights the full scope of city and CRA events, including our overall budget, estimated attendance, and cost per attendee. I did provide a printout of the backup items for you so that you could review that. Staff is seeking direction on how the board would like to proceed with events, specifically which CRA promotions that you would like to proceed with that have not yet been hosted this fiscal year.
Thank you. Are there any questions from my colleagues at this time? Sure.
I do. Thank you, Board. One of the citizens stood before us tonight and said that they would like to get rid of the MLK Day and say it loud. I think probably the reason that this is not being very well attended is because of the lack of how we promote this. I'm just saying, I noticed the city now, you all have stepped up your game on promoting what we're doing here, and I wouldn't want it to be cut. I'd like for us to give it another shot, these 2 events, and promote it as much as you can. Then if it comes back low attendance, then we could revisit.
We did alter the MLK Day this past year because we knew the attendance has been lower and there was a pretty significant budget attached to it. A lot of it was due to the time of year and just bad weather every year. So we changed that and we have already altered the budget. We were just reflecting 2025. I feel like this past year was successful. We did more of a banquet and acknowledging and a day of service and had about 100 people for under 15,000.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair. Amanda, real quick, so the one, when we spoke about this at the last meeting, just kind of, in, what am I saying? Like, just casual conversation, talking
Sure.
about the events. One of my concerns with pushing off, let's say, the night market. I mean, the night market is our most successful event when you look at both city and CRA. And I know that in your budget, you're not showing any available funding for that. So this will go to Catherine too. Because that has been so successful, and I think a lot of that has to do with the dates. Mercedes has been very cognizant on picking dates that everyone's kind of back from summer vacations, but still not back at school yet. And I fear that because other cities have picked up on our night market success and have secured other dates other than that weekend, that if we go and cancel it even for a year, that there's a good chance that we'll lose that opportunity to have that night market again. And it is a very successful event for not only for our city, but for our businesses. And so and this is because we're having this good reason to have this joint meeting, is because I wonder if there is a mechanism to allow us to continue or to partner between the CRA and the city to make sure that this event still happens this year so that until we can transition it. Because what happened with Pirate Fest, it's a prime example. It got transferred to the city. The city didn't have it budgeted. The CRA got it off of their budget, and then it was gone. And we were lucky enough where we were able to capture it because there was enough hype that people wanted Boynton Beach to still carry Pirate Fest. We were able to kind of secure a date and say, no, it's coming back. It's coming back. It's here. We're not going anywhere. But I just wonder if there is a way that we can do a smooth transition where it's not just going straight from the CRA off of their budget and onto the city budget so that we don't lose it this year.
I agree. Since I've started, I think we all know that I'm about 6 months new. Mercedes been a wealth of knowledge, and I've utilized that. Depending on your decision, we have spoken that, yes, we would love this year where I could work with them, understand how they execute it so that if it is approved for next year, that we could take it on smoothly. So our events team is ready to work on it this year if that's the direction you would like.
So then I guess my question to Catherine is then what, with partnering with the city, I'm assuming it kind of lessens the risk because we're not, it's not a full event, but can you just briefly talk about that for a second?
Yes. So I'm going to back up by just clarifying a little bit of the legal background, which is that events are, it's unclear in the statute, and that there is some support for activities by CRA undertaking things like that. So it is not that they are clearly prohibited, okay? So with that as a background, the evaluation was related to higher risk, lower risk. There is no immediate change that necessitated this discussion. It just was the time and state of affairs. Having said that, the CRA could certainly partner with the city, understanding it has been carrying this risk. And so certainly transitioning to the city already begins to lessen it. The CRA would continue to, in this year, if it were to execute, I think I am correct in assuming that the CRA would continue to do those things that have made it CRA focused, including special focus on CRA businesses, highlighting those particular attendees that were related to the CRA. And so in that vein, could continue to partner with the city. And moving forward, the CRA could also partner with the city in some fiscal capacity, as long as those funds were reasonably focused on those CRA businesses, CRA participation. So the CRA does not need to walk away from this event entirely in any case. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, because that's really my concern is losing our top event, really between the city and the CRA and I think that, partnering together, we could probably even make it a little bit bigger, right? So, that would be my hope is that, but I think all the other ones that we spoke about, Mercedes, the snapshots, and you went over that kind of in detail of the ones that you really felt like, as much as they were bringing some opportunity to businesses, it wasn't really providing that business driver, which is what the end goal really is for us. So, I kind of follow your recommendations that you previously gave us as far as the ones that you really felt like were probably, or that, between staff gave us as far as what was, a risk that we should probably, stop doing. Whether the city ends up wanting to adopt those, then, that's up to Amanda. But those are kind of my thoughts on that. But thank you guys for working together on this, and look forward to many more great events. Thanks.
Thank you. So for clarification, you guys are looking for what events to continue this year, and then what to potentially discuss to transfer over to the city. I think the big concern about this conversation is the ambiguity, and what we saw with the legislation last year in Tallahassee about CRAs in its entirety. And so I think it's responsible to at least scale back a little bit. I think the boat parade is important. That was a city event that the CRA had taken on. The boat parade's been going on before the CRA was even adopted. And so also has the lowest cost per person, huge turnout. It's a multi-jurisdictional event. So I would like to see that transferred over. I could go without the Rock the Blocks, without the Rock the Plazas. I think the Rock the Marina is a good one too, because and again, it's not, the discussion technically isn't about events, it's about business promotions, right? And we're doing that through events. And so I think highlighting one of our anchors is crucial to the CRA plan, and then also the strategic plan. What that looks like on the city side, I don't know. But for this fiscal year, I would like to see the Rock the Marina, Boynton Beach Spring Market, if we're going to potentially discuss having some form of like future ILA agreement between the CRA and the economic development team to highlight those businesses, then I think it'd be responsible to keep that this year, so we understand how that works if it does get transferred. As far as the snapshots with Santa, Bon Appetit, I'm okay. The Bon Appetit was a good one. It's expensive. It does highlight the businesses. I think there's other ways to do that. But I just don't want us to depend on these too much, and I want us to have some foresight, thinking that next year anything could change in Tallahassee, and then we can't do any of this. Right. So I think it's important to scale back. I think the other thing to think about too is something the city attorney had addressed at our last commission meeting in regards to some events based on what they're promoting. There's going to be some hindrance there, and so I just don't want us to budget all this money and then not have the ability to perform for these. But again, we're focused on the CRA now. So, for me, it's for the rest of the fiscal year, I would say just keep the Rock, the Marina, keep the night market, and I'm okay to forgo the rest. And then, I imagine closer to budget season, we'll have a, more in-length conversation about what that looks like and transferring those over, if that's what this board decides to do.
And
so my suggestion is, if there's conversations about, or there's a question about what are we going to keep, is I would say the Rock the Marina and the night market, and then I'd be okay to forego the rest. I know one of them we okayed last week because there was a time restraint on that.
Yes, so you gave permission to proceed with the Rock the Plaza series. So we've already been in contact with...
the whole series?
Yes.
So that includes the August one?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. I thought it was just for the one that was next month.
Based on the board discussion, I believe that it was to proceed with the low-risk events, that you didn't see there any need, and to hold off and find out this week about the Rock the Marina, as well as the night market in Bon Appetit, Boynton Beach.
Okay.
Board Chair, I've been told that there is a request for additional public comment on this item. You're not required to take it, but just to let you know.
I'm okay with taking public comment on this item. Are you?
Chair, thank you. I'd just like to say to the two of you, partnering together, the city and the CRA, we got a lot of things that we got to get done. I'd like for you all to continue to work together, and what you all see that we need to do without breaking the law, because that's the way I'm looking at it, that we are in line, you know, to continue giving us, you know, really bangs for our bucks like you all have been doing, and things you said, well, I think this is really failing. You know, you all are putting the programs on. I'm saying y'all know just what needs to be cut and what needs to be promoted, and saying that this is really we're getting what we need for our bucks. I'm just saying, you know, but this is why I say advertisement. Advertisement, I think that's the crux of a lot of things we do here in Boynton without it. And I want to thank y'all for painting up the signs that y'all put up on the entrance ways. I'm just saying, because I told y'all about the 2 sticks wasn't painted. Y'all did that, and I want to say thank you. At least you do all listen to the citizens. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
if I may. So just to confirm, because I think this was, so the city has agreed to take the boat parade back on. Is that because I do want the boat parade to continue. And my understanding was that this, on the city end, that you guys had agreed to do that this year.
So when we,
But technically next year.
so
but-
we did talk, the 2 events that we did target that we are trying to free up money within the city's budget to cover would have been the night market and the boat parade, correct?
Okay.
So I think Amanda was able to find how much you were projecting that's just kind of a little bit in advance of our budget discussions, but you thought you could free up some money, but it wasn't enough to cover the whole thing.
That is correct. We were under budget on a couple events, so we might have about $40,000 in excess. I do have suggestions on where we can maybe merge an event together and would free up about $103,000 to help cover a big chunk.
And I just
Should I
wanted-
state that now, or? I just think there's an opportunity for us to merge the holiday parade and the holiday tree lighting together. There's like $80,000 of hard costs that like you have to just to execute the event. I noticed we really didn't have attendants lining the street, only right in front of the performance stage. And I understand the parents love seeing their kids perform. I think we could merge that with the tree lighting, have a secondary stage. The kids can do all their performances. Now we're not utilizing all the officers' resources and closing down Federal Highway, and that would save us $103,000.
And then also, Catherine, there are some things, because I know we have done this in the past also with some of the city events where we can market or we can pay for certain things too. So I would like us to look at that too, because there are maybe some mechanisms in these, even in the holiday boat parade, that maybe the CRA can still assist in some of the funding aspects, whether that be marketing or whatever that is, promotions or whatever, to kind of offset some of that cost too. So I think there is an opportunity where the CRA can even kind of assist in funding that, you know, at least temporarily, if not a little bit further down the line. So I just wanted to confirm that. So the boat parade, okay. So thank you, Amanda, for squeezing your belt to make all that work. And I'm good. I know when we did, Mercedes, when you did the Bon Appetit presentation, I know that there was a lot of success on the business end. So not necessarily, and I know it is one of our higher cost, and I hate to call it an event because it's really not. It's a promotional. There's no actual true event except that people get to go to restaurants for a prefix menu, but on a particular day. So I guess if you want to call that an event. But so I want to make sure that we don't just get rid of it because it's on this events list, because it truly, I feel like it's a business promotions opportunity for our restaurants. So I'd rather almost keep that as a placeholder on our budget, and maybe we can relook at that data at our next CRA meeting, because I'd like to relook at that Bon Appetit data and really see if the businesses, at the end of the day, that's what matters, are the businesses benefiting from us, you know, hosting that series. So if that's okay with staff, I'd like to have that come back, just a brief, you know, and it can even not necessarily be at the meeting. I'd be happy to look at it, but I think that would be my thought, just because if that truly is a benefit to the businesses, I don't want to lose it just because of the cost.
Board Member Cruz, do you have anything before we go back to public comment? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, David Katz. You're the 5 wise souls. You're going to figure this out really well. I'd like to speak to 2 items. One is the Pirate Fest. The number over this last year is kind of low. And the reason why it was low is there were 2 days of rain. And usually there's probably 3 times that amount there. So that's one calculation that really isn't representative of it. The other thing is, earlier, Ms. Oyer spoke about wanting to not have the 9/11 memorial as often. Didn't mention not having the Pearl Harbor Day. I contacted the Oracle in Pearl Harbor. There were 2,400 casualties. On 9/11, with the 3 plane attacks, there were close to 3,000 casualties. My mother was the youngest of 4 sisters. Her older sister had a grandchild who was a second cousin to me, who died in those towers. And besides all the people that, as far as PTSD and the others who died of cancer afterwards, first responders, the number is much higher than 2,900. And I think getting rid of that memorial would be a grave mistake, because that was the second time this country was attacked in a surprise way, and it brought us into a new type of era. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may. I just want to clarify for the public, we're talking about moving CRA events into the city. We're not discussing cutting city events right now. I think that's important to know. That way there's no misinformation going around.
Yeah.
Okay.
What kind of direction do we need? Do we need a motion? Do you have consensus? Do we have consensus?
So no motion is required, as you're not at this point talking about an adjustment. I believe that we have consensus, and I will recap, and then you all can correct if we've not gotten it correct. But for Rock the Marina Night Market and the Rock the Plaza series, those are going to continue with maximum partnership with the city. Currently, the CRA will not undertake planning efforts for snapshots with Santa, and the city is going to be working on taking over the boat parade, and the CRA is going to investigate methods to help. If that is your direction, we can execute that without a motion.
Good.
And by me, thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you both. The next item for discussion and consideration is fiscal year 2026-27 budget considerations, which was tabled on April 14th, meeting to a date certain on April 21st, 2026. If we want to discuss this item, it will need to be untabled. Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion to untable this item?
Move.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Would the interim director, Dan Duggar, like to open this item?
Where's, Vicky?
She's in the audience.
Oh. I know we briefly discussed in reference to some of the different items that we're looking to possibly add to, and we had a discussion also with, I had a discussion with Tim, is the expansion of our circuit program. Right now, the city currently provides, I'm going to say about $60,000 in funding, which goes towards the transportation to the beach. And there's discussion as far as like expanding that to Tri-Rail. However, that's only from Tri-Rail to the CRA district, from the CRA district to Tri-Rail. And Tim's been looking at some FDOT grants that can offset probably about 50% of that cost. We're looking at it's probably going to be in the vicinity of $100,000 to $200,000 additional monies from the city side. I do want to have a discussion on that. I think it may be worth it when we're looking at the overall analytics from the transportation to the beach that we're currently utilizing now. We spoke today, and ridership has actually decreased by probably about 500 riders per year. So as opposed to expanding that, I just want to have a discussion as maybe we should look at possibly canceling the beach transportation or ridership and maybe incorporating a Tri-Rail, or we try to carry both. But again, we're discussing adding events to the city's budget, and now we're discussing adding additional travel to Tri-Rail from the CRA district. and I haven't really budgeted pay raises for the employees this year, so I'm trying to keep things to a priority. But I'd be open to the discussion as far as like expanding that program to Tri-Rail. It's just, if I continue to see ridership decrease, then that was my concern. But
I have a question on that. So when you travel to other cities and they have this type of transportation, all of those type of transportations are heavily funded with advertising. So is our circuit not doing that? Because there's other transportation companies that come right into cities and have that advertisement already lined up. And so that's a source of revenue that I think we're really missing out on, which I don't think canceling it going to the beach is a good idea. We have seniors that want to go there.
Yeah.
We know parking's an issue, but I also feel like Circuit itself as a company is not carrying us or trying to help us with this program.
The circuit has been actively trying to get sponsorships within, we actually had a month-long sponsorship. However, it wasn't continued. We were also hoping at some point in time, looking at some of the developments that we have coming on board, maybe there should be partnerships in that regard as well. Bonnie has some of the numbers because she is my person that's been working hand in glove with Circuit. And certainly, if we were to look at expanding outside of our CRA district, and talking with Dan, there may be an opportunity to increase your geofence, so it's not just a destination. So there's those opportunities, but again, that comes at an expense, to Dan's point, so.
Well, and I know, Chair, I know we also kept the fees down, the cost down to encourage people to use it. So I think there are, I definitely, the beach is probably, and it, when we get our circuit updates, we don't have one tonight, so we need to have one probably at our next CRA meeting, to really look at the numbers or soon. I think we're due for an update soon from Circuit anyway. But maybe there's a way that we scale back the beach trips, or maybe there's a way that we look at the days that it's most used, whether that's the weekend or particular hours or whatever. But I think there's ways that we can tweak that, and then maybe with the Tri-Rail, because it's an added city, maybe it costs more, to the rider. So I think there's ways that we can capture it. The advertising, unfortunately, it's based on people wanting to advertise. And so it's not, and I think, and I want to say, Tim, that we even limited who we wanted to advertise. And so I feel like I remember something about being local, or at least close to being local businesses. So I'd like to look at that again with Circuit and see if it's a truly, if we're shooting ourselves in the foot, so to speak, by limiting the advertising possibilities, because I know the advertising that we did have, it was advertising, and I remember some people were kind of like, oh, well, it's a alcohol company or whatever. Well, it's still advertising that's helping us pay the bills. So I think looking at that too, and working with Circuit a little bit more closely, and working with even our economic development, since we do connect to the beach, working with our economic development team to look at really reaching out to businesses to see if we can push that advertising aspect of it too. So there may be a way that we can also increase that on our own too.
Thank you, Chair. And this is all for the city manager. I'm new up here, but are we still doing beach decals? Okay.
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, how is that part? I'm just saying, is it dwindling because of Circuit, or is it?
We try to utilize Circuit to offset some of the shortages of those decals. Or permits. They were in such high demand. We were actually on a first-come, first-served basis, and Circuit was going to help offset some of the bottlenecking that we had due to the popularity of our beach, especially during the off-season, or during the winter and fall months, whenever we have an influx of tourism and visitors coming down.
Thank you. I just didn't want us to shoot ourselves at the foot,
Understood.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. As far as expansion of Circuit, for me, that's not something we should do right now, especially if the data is showing that the ridership is down I'd like to see where. I also don't think that cutting off the beach is appropriate because that was the main kicker that the city got involved with this. But I think to, one second, I think to talk about this discussion item as a whole, it's not just about circuit, it's to talk about what city projects are we prioritizing that match our strategic plan and also the CRA plan. And so I know we've done a lot of ILAs over the last few years, which I think has been some great work and collaboration between the two agencies. And so that's why I had brought up this discussion. And a lot of that for me is geared towards infrastructure. We're seeing a huge impact in the CRA district. You know, it's in some of the oldest parts of the city, right? And so I think it's important that, mobility is important, and I think getting developers to pay into that as sponsorships is great, but we also need to get back to the basics and look at the foundation, of mobility, and it's making sure that we have aesthetic and safe roads. And so if there's any road paving projects that the city has identified that are within the CRA district, I would like to have those conversations going into the budget year. Pence Park is one of those projects, which I think is great. Looking forward to that. The roads near Pence Park aren't the best. And so I want to make sure that, that we're being proactive when it comes to this infrastructure, especially because we have 3,000 keys coming into the downtown over the next few years. So for me, it's infrastructure, looking at projects. If we want to have the discussion about circuit expanding, maybe my perception of this item was, what do we want to get done in the city, specifically related to CIP, that then we can utilize the CRA to do an ILA for. And so, I want to make sure that we're being aggressive with this because it's an opportunity to deliver to the residents sooner and, again, be proactive and maintain our infrastructure and improve our infrastructure as the city grows.
Yeah, I just want to add this one caveat. I was just speaking on the ridership that's being paid for by the city. The actual ridership for Circuit is up year over year by probably about 5,000 ridership. So the program seems to be being utilized more on the CRA side, but just transportation to the beach is the one that we're seeing a drop in.
The beach is decreased.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yes, if I may, just over year 1 to 2 for the beach, it went down 500 riders, but in the overall CRA district, ridership went from 10,000 riders a year to 18,000 plus riders a year.
Did we see the decline because it's off-season and people don't go to the beach when it's 1,000 degrees?
It's annual. The analytics are done from an annual basis, so it would include both. So as far as budget considerations, that's one of the things I kind of wanted to look at, and where on the city side, and obviously this is going to be reflective of CRA funding as well. We're doing our projections right around 4 to 5% this year, and that's what we're looking at as far as the increase in funding. We brought in probably about $80 million in ad valorem revenue. Of that, about 21% went to CRA, 16.7 million. So I'm assuming we're going to see about a 4 to 5% increase in those fundings to go over to CRA. So and additional CIP considerations. So we'll look at that as far as I guess that's a question for you, Catherine, as far as road pavings.
We can look at it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what you're bringing forward, but CRAs do have the ability to help with that type of project, subject to certain parameters.
Right. And the only other thing I want to remind this board about is second meeting in May. I have some transformative items that I want to present to you guys that could have an impact as far as like CRA funding. So I just wanted you guys to keep that in mind. Okay. Tim, Vicki, you guys want to bring up anything?
Well, good evening, Board. Vicki Hill, CRA Finance Director. The only thing is we'll be ready to budget soon. We'll get the number from the property appraiser. The first one comes next month, the end of the month. And then the one that we actually budget with is the end of June. But we'll be ready, and whatever is needed in the city, we'll be here. We always ask you what you would like. So we will make sure that those numbers get in. That's it for me.
Thank you.
And we'll continue to coordinate with city staff in regards to infrastructure improvements. Every year we sit down, we look at you know, what it is that the CRA can fund and where it's going to be very impactful. And I think we have, this year was like, what, 10.7 million or something to that effect. So, you know, we'll continue to keep looking at that.
I have one comment, and that is on this circuit thing. Can the city advertise some of our events on there will be legally?
Yes, sir. The city is able to advertise, the CRA is able to advertise, and just since you've given me the moment to speak, I will just clarify that there is no limit on businesses, other than there's no obscenity, no defamatory, and then tobacco, firearms, and cannabis advertising are prohibited, but is otherwise not limited to businesses.
Thank you.
You know, I'm just saying, we might want to look at, you know, some of our events. We could probably, you know, get money and put that on the circuit and let it run around town with it. Just a thought.
I just think if we do any expansion too, I don't know if Tri-Rail is really the place, because I think this helps senior citizens a lot. And is the circuit able to take them to a doctor's appointment down by Bethesda or anything, as opposed to like how many are really going to the Tri-Rail all the time? So I think these are some variables that I don't think we can make a decision on that without more accurate data.
I think also too to consider is there was discussion of Tri-Rail not even getting state funding. And so Tri-Rail could be eliminated. So we might be investing in something that's got an expiration date. So, you know, I think great thought process. The point about the, like, utilizing it for seniors, I think is important. So like maybe it's not the Tri-Rail, maybe it's Leisureville, right? Maybe it's those other communities, you know, that could better serve, you know, people who don't have the same, you know, mobility preference as others. So I think great idea, but I think there's more to be discussed.
Let me ask another question. In regards to circuit, do you all look at the senior center? I'm just saying, you know, we might have some individuals might need rides to and fro because we want to utilize our facilities.
The senior center is within our geofenced area. However, it's restricted to within the CRA district. So we would not be able to go, you know, depending on where you're trying to
If a
get.
resident lives in the CRA, they can go to the senior center and back.
Right.
Or to Publix, or we've expanded it to Walmart
Yes.
on Federal Highway. So we have expanded it to places that, you know, our seniors can get to, and grocery store and things like that.
The only district that we haven't expanded to is industrial.
Thank you.
Okay, more work to do on that. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item is the discussion and consideration of finalizing the date and agenda for the CRA Board Workshop. CRA Interim Executive Director, Mr. Duggar, could you please open this item?
Yes, Mayor, Madam Chair. Originally, we had a date scheduled for April 25th. We're looking for consensus from the board to reschedule that meeting. That was a CRA meeting where we were going to look at possibly redistricting and have a more large discussion. So again, we're just looking for direction from the board as far as like a date certain for us.
I think we canceled it with the thought that you, as staff, would need to tell us when you would be prepared to present that. So I think I'll turn it back to you and just ask when will you be prepared, or when would you like to have that discussion is in a time frame so that we can start looking? Because otherwise we'll just start throwing out dates and it may not work.
I would look at the following Saturday,
May 9th?
May 9th.
May 2nd doesn't work.
May
for-
2nd doesn't work for you?
Yeah,
Okay, then May 9th.
May 9th, what time?
we usually do it early morning.
Because it might not work for me, but I'm just saying I could Zoom.
This Mother's Day weekend.
I'll Zoom.
May 9th is Mother's Day weekend.
Oh,
Oh, no.
23rd?
Let's shoot for the 20th. That's Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
16th?
Can't do the 16th.
30th?
May
30th? 30th is good.
30th work?
Yeah, it's a month out, so.
May
9
30th.
a.m.?
Yeah, 9 a.m. until 12. I think 3 hours should be sufficient.
If I can make it, I will. If not, I will, you know, be Zoom, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Consensus or motion?
Motion, please, as it's a schedule change.
Motion to approve the next CRA workshop to a date of May 30th.
Second.
We We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on, the next item is the discussion and consideration of the results of the community input survey for 480 West Boynton Beach Boulevard and the surrounding properties. Mercedes, can you open this item?
Yes, good evening again, Board. So in alignment with the CRA's commitment to produce community-driven redevelopment, our staff conducted an extensive public outreach campaign to gather feedback in the future use of the property located at 480 West Boynton Beach Boulevard and the surrounding parcels. As a result of those efforts, we received 1,079 responses. The data provides an overview regarding the land use, desired amenities, and architectural character for the redevelopment site. And we can go through the questions individually if you'd like. Vicki, can you start from the top? So the majority of the respondents, 81%, were residents of the city of Boynton Beach. And also the majority lived within 2 miles of this project site. They traveled throughout the site via car, that was 97%. When asked what types of development they want to see on that property, the primary responses, there were 3 that were over 40%, mixed use and retail, as well, including, mixed use, which would include retail, dining, and residential, public green space or plaza, as well as cultural arts or community space were the top ranking. And then when we go on to question 9, which is what types of businesses or services would you like to see featured? Number 1, 57% family-friendly dining, followed by arts and cultural or creative spaces, and small local businesses. The next question is asking, the next question is what amenities or features would make this site most beneficial to the community? Top ranking on that, again, would be walkable design and sidewalks, local restaurants and cafes, public gathering space or plaza, landscaping and shade, and improved lighting and safety features. The next question, asking how important it's going to be to create new jobs and business opportunities. We had 44% say that it was very important to them. Now, when it came to building height, and what the appropriate height respondents felt that this property would have. We had at the top 42%, 1 to 2 floors, or 1 to 2 stories, and then 3 to 5 stories coming in at 36%. The number one response regarding what visual elements is most important for the site was lush landscaping and green space. And then when it came down to what best reflects the vision for the site, 39% said a balanced gateway presence and a neighborhood compatibility. And then rounding that out with what concerns, if any, were had, the top of that was with 77%, traffic and congestion, followed by parking availability. Now, we did have some open-ended questions as well, and there were some outliers within them. So the questions that we had, in your own words, what would you like this site to represent for Boynton Beach? We were seeing things like community, family, gathering, as well as green space, nature, trees, walkability, safety. They want to see local businesses and small shops, as well as art, culture, and identity. And they wanted to keep it coastal, as well as a fishing village identity. Now, on to the final open-ended question. It was, if there's a place that you visited anywhere in the world that reflects your vision for what you would like to be built on the site, to share what that was. And what we had for that, there was a strong preference, again, for walkability and mixed use. People were citing Delray Beach, specifically Atlantic Avenue, Sunday Village, and Pineapple Grove. We got West Palm Beach, City Place, Rosemary Square, and Clematis Street. Boca Raton, Meisner Park came up, as well as downtown St. Petersburg. And the things that people liked about these areas was specifically the walkability and the pedestrian first design, as well as the mixed uses, the active streets, and just the life that was there during the day and at nighttime, and then that it had a destination feel. So that's the overall, I didn't want to spend too much time going over the data with you, but that's an overall overview of what the data represented, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Fantastic. The
Great.
survey, yes. Any comments or questions from my colleagues?
Yep. No, I wanted to bring this item up because obviously it's important to have community feedback. And I just want to say for the record, told you so, we didn't need 6 to 7 stories on the survey because it was one of the lowest ranked. This is a clear decision from the community that they're sick of high-rise development. They don't want the density, right? And when you look at all of this, lush landscaping was, I think, the most common theme that you saw throughout a lot of these questions, along with community fill. And so I think as we move forward with this project, when we were negotiating, on the idea of purchasing this, I think everyone on the dais said something similar. They did not want this to just be a buy and hold and just see what we do with it. And so now that we have a good idea of what the community wants for what I would argue is the most visible redevelopment site in our city, being off of 95, I think it's important that that both the city and the CRA look at this and identify, based on the feedback, based on the current zoning, what that looks like. What are some conceptuals that we can look like? I know, the former firm was very good at identifying, spitball ideas, looking at stuff, and then getting the community involved, and then, looking at this, as a board together. And so that's what I'm looking for, is making sure that this doesn't fall through the cracks through this transition, and that we're identifying, to the community, hey, we hear you. We're going to do something with this feedback. We're going to come back with ideas, and hopefully, identify as a board what that next process would look like for this site. Maybe it's more land acquisition. Maybe it's an RFP. Maybe it's something else. But I just want to get this on the front of the CRA and the city's radar, especially having that overlap in leadership. So that way we can come back with something and deliver, because I do believe this is the most visible and important, for now, redevelopment site for the city's future, especially, with that location. So I just want to, really hit on that point and, make sure that we take the feedback seriously from the community.
And we have closed on the other parcels as of last Friday, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so this survey was going out just about that in property. Are we rerunning this survey at all, knowing that we now not only have the in, but have the 13 or 14 parcels?
So the survey included the parcels, the
Perfect.
adjoining parcels.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Chair,
Sure.
thank you. Since we have the stats, my concern is, have we put this out for anybody that'd like to come in and see what they want to put there? Not yet?
Not yet, because we wanted to talk to the
Okay,
community
so-
first.
Okay, since we have the sets, we know where we need to go. Good, thank you.
But you think this was a better approach, instead of developers just coming and throwing
Yes.
everything our way and wasting
Yes.
so much time, is now they know what the community wants and they can tailor it to that.
I have one other concern. When I sat up here before, we used to get surveys and everything done, and we would put them on the back burner and not do anything with them. I hope this is not one that we put on the back burner, please. Thank you.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I think, and just on that same, that same topic, and I think everyone up here feels the same way, that we have invested so much time and energy and focus on purchasing and getting these sites, that we want to be a part of what is going to come in those spots. And so I feel like, I know for me, that I'm not willing to sit on this and wait to see what happens, that I think that it's important for us to really spearhead this and make it for the residents. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes, for your help on this. It was insightful, for sure.
Okay, moving on. The next item is the discussion and consideration of the interlocal agreement between the City of Boynton Beach and the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for city services, including city manager, interim executive director services, human resources services, finance services, and information technology services. CRA interim executive director, Mr. Duggar, would you like to open this item?
Yes, Mayor, I'm briefly going to discuss what this ILA does, and then I'll turn it over to the attorneys to give you the legal aspect of it. But essentially what it does, we have some old ILAs with the CRA, and we have a master capital improvement ILA, and this is a similar idea, but it's from an operational personnel standpoint. So this gives me the ability to utilize the city side of these inter-service departments to provide the same services that we get on the city with the CRA. One of the things that I'll probably bring back in the future to this board, it was brought to my attention that the CRA does not have a recording function, where in the CRA policy, essentially the executive director acts as such, meaning that public records requests come into the CRA, the executive director fulfills those requests. I'd like to eventually utilize the clerk's office to fulfill that function with GovX, and we'll do a similar add-on. But this does the human resources aspect, the financial aspects, and the two below items are going to be part of the overall assessment that I mentioned during the appointment. Over the next 30 days, that we've identified some of the issues going forward that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention. So, Catherine.
Sure, so I'll take it over, and I'm going to start with a little bit of an oddity here, which is that we are here at a notice joint meeting, meaning you are sitting here wearing two hats at once. So at the end of this, with whatever decision you make, if it is by motion, in discussion with the city attorney, we've agreed that although it will be weird, we will ask you to make the motion twice. One says the CRA and one says the city. So I'm just putting you on alert for wherever this discussion goes. Having gotten that oddity out of the way, as Mr. Duggar mentioned, we, since he was appointed last week, have pulled together an interlocal agreement to effectuate not only that, but also to integrate existing interlocal agreements. So I'm going to talk you through the terms of it, and I will, in a little bit of a slower fashion, again, because this was a late publication, so please feel free to jump in with any questions. So this covers four primary areas. The first are the the interim executive director services being provided by Mr. Duggar. As set forth in this agreement, he is deemed to have commenced as of last week, even though this interlocal agreement is being put in place today, and it ratifies all of his actions that he's taken in the past week. It will automatically renew. It is subject to renegotiation of terms at such renewal, and it may be terminated upon notice by either party. In securing his executive director services, it also allows for the executive director to authorize the assistant or deputy city managers as eligible delegates under this agreement to perform CRA tasks. In other words, he can use the existing city management staff as appropriate delegates for CRA business, assuming that they are duly qualified to fulfill that role. It is very clear that those personnel also have the right to refuse to engage in CRA business if they feel like they are not qualified to do so, and it won't be deemed to impact their city employment. So in other words, they may be of help to the CRA, but they also, because they're not employed by the CRA, are not obligated to take on those responsibilities at this point in time. The scope of the duties will be as very similar to what were in the prior executive director contract. Generally, the management and oversight of the CRA, governance, personnel, public records, appearing at meetings. There are no substantial changes. I can go through those, but it is exactly what you would expect of an executive director. And the CRA is not going to engage any outside firm or person to perform those services so long as Mr. Duggar is in that role, provided, of course, that if someone is hired as a permanent CRA director, he would be empowered to work with him to make that transition smooth. And then compensation for this will be paid from the CRA to the city pursuant to this interlocal agreement. It is $300 per year, and it will be distributed to the city manager through the city, and that is through the end of this year. That is considered a salary supplement to the city manager. So I'm going to stop there and just ask if we have any questions about that.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Please don't nobody take this the wrong way. I'm just saying, if we get rid of the city manager, don't get it wrong. I'm just saying, will we have to advertise we're looking for a city manager / CRA director, or how will we do that? I'm trying to look down the road too.
So currently, you would not be obligated to do that because you are not obligated to keep the city manager as your executive director. You could do that if you wanted to consider with that design. So yes, at the point where the city manager were to, let's say, win the lottery and go live in the Mediterranean, you would be out 2 jobs.
Are you asking if you could, I'll come back so you can fire me twice.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, so next up are the human resources services. As previously mentioned, the city and the CRA currently have a human resources interlocal agreement. It has been a number of years since it was updated, so there are some changes. However, it is in substantial conformance with the way many of these things operate. Basically, the city would provide all HR services to the CRA, all aspects of personnel administration, maintenance of files, relations to hiring and firing, posting of jobs, document imaging, employment verification, very standard HR functions. So that would be basically entirely performed by the city on behalf of the CRA pursuant to this. That would also include benefits administration, employee relations, discipline, termination, training and development, payroll, all of those different aspects, basically every aspect of HR. The estimated annual total for that would be $20,700 with a 5% escalator year over year. Both parties would have the right to ask for a change in that payment should the need for services dramatically increase over 5%. The city could come renegotiate should there be a reason that the need for services decreases. The CRA could ask for an adjustment in price, but that is based on current needs.
For the CRA to allocate those funds to the city, for clarification,
Yes.
not to the executive director.
That is correct. It is to the city.
I could see that getting picked up, so I want to make sure we're clear there.
Yeah, no, the executive director stands to make $300 a year from this arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in one place.
Yes. On the Mediterranean cruise. For financial services, this is a bit of a change. So, and this is different in scope and type than the other pieces of this interlocal agreement. So currently, the city does perform the IT services and the HR services for the CRA. The city does not currently perform financial services for the CRA. This agreement would allow the city to perform financial oversight functions for the CRA, but it does not require taking over the day-to-day operations of the CRA and is not predicated on, removal of existing CRA finance staff. It is, it's intended to supplement and not replace that, but to provide additional oversight and to provide the opportunity for the interim executive director to perform those tasks that he spoke with you about, including financial audits, updating financial policies, and performance reviews, that kind of thing. And so this is, I can go over this in greater detail if you like, but that is generally the concept behind that. The compensation for those services is estimated to be an annual about $55,000 a year.
I have a question. And this was part of my concern with making a quick decision to make a change. We're saying that we're looking to do this until the end of the fiscal year, but I already see the lines blurring between CRA and city, and I don't like it. I have concerns with that. We're separate. There's a reason for it, and I believe that if we needed to have financial services or any sort of auditing, we could have a third party come in and do that specifically for the CRA. I don't like the lines being blurred between city staff overlooking the finances of the CRA, where they're inherently separate governmental agencies, and this is really blurring the lines, and I do have concerns with that. One thing is, the executive director position and human resources, which comes with it, but to add financial services to that, knowing that there are plenty of financial agencies that are experienced with CRA specifically. The city has a lot to handle budgetarily right now, where I don't think that we should utilize our city staff to also oversee CRA, in addition to the fact that we do have a finance director in our CRA. If we wanted to audit it, I think we should go forward with an outside firm. that's not connected to the city, and it can be independent. Thank you.
Anything else? Good.
Okay, no other questions on this section? Okay. So I will proceed through, moving on to IT services. Again, this is substantially the same as the IT services agreement that is in place currently with the city and the CRA. There's really not much of a change in function. There is a minor adjustment in price, equating to an annual amount of $32,194.96. And it's just putting all of these administrative functions into one CRA. The other items in this are somewhat of a legal nature other than the office location, which is that the CRA is located where it is currently located. Everyone agrees that we are operating in the sunshine. We have to abide with public records laws, et cetera. There is some cross indemnification, as is normally appropriate in these types of documents when one entity is performing services on behalf of another. Nothing in this waives the sovereign immunity of either of the agencies involved. And I think that those are kind of the major provisions that I did want to bring to your attention. Other than termination. So either party can terminate this agreement either as a whole or as to each of the individual service categories. So of the 4 categories we listed, it is possible to sever any one of them from this agreement at any time without impacting the others upon 60 days written notice. It can be for cause, it can be without cause. It is simply at the will of either party. And so moving forward, you are not limited in how this must be administered moving forward. However, if there is termination for cause, it is a 30-day instead of a 60-day. With that, I think if there are any other questions, I would be happy to answer them, and I would just like to check with the city attorney to see if there's anything she'd like to add. No.
Thank you, Board Chair. I'm going to back up on what Board Member Cruz said about, the financial aspect of this. Okay, we already have a director in the CRA, and, sometimes when things mesh together, I'm just saying you might learn how to do things easier. That's my way of looking at it, and better. We always used to have to get an audit for the city, and we also have to get an audit for the CRA, so we're not losing the auditory and the auditing ability of each one of these agencies. I'm just saying sometimes when parties come together, they can say, well, I was making 3 copies of this, but I only needed 1 copy. I'm just saying, before we jump in and try to kill what's going to happen, I'm just saying we need to kind of let things start playing out. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner McCray. I think, yeah, you can say they're 2 different agencies, but ultimately, it's the taxpayer dollars.
Right.
That's what we're here for. Doesn't matter if it's CRA in the left hand or the city in the right hand, it's the oversight of where it comes from, and that is the taxpayers. So if someone wants to decline an extra set of transparency for taxpayer dollars, that is absolutely their prerogative. That will not be mine. And I think Commissioner McCray brought up a great point that when you have more collaboration, you streamline processes. And when you make things more efficient and streamlined, you save money. You do a service to the taxpayers versus not trying to, just do things the same way time and time again. The old interim city manager said something, the most expensive thing you can do or say is we've always done it that way, right? And that's how businesses, some fail because they don't innovate, they don't get with the times, and they don't learn how to be more efficient. But I think ultimately if we're going to, ask the city manager to be the interim executive director, we need to make sure that we provide the tools that they need to do their job, and that includes the whole city manager's office. So I think it's important that if these are the tools that the executive director and his team need to do their job, I think it's fair to do that. And again, adding an extra layer of transparency for the taxpayer dollars, especially when we're saving hundreds of thousands by not going back out for another CRA director and hundreds of thousands by not going out for another firm, I think that's fair. I think spending, $55,000 to save a couple hundred, I think is fair.
And to piggyback, we started doing these joint meetings for a reason, because we saw the value in really working together as a team. And also the CRA and the city staff has worked together, in the last couple months and had weekly meetings for that exact purpose, so that we are, even though we are two separate entities, we represent one group, one city. We're one city. And I've said this when it comes to events and it comes to different things, nobody's looking at the logo. We all represent the city, and it doesn't matter what logo is on your shirt or what title is after your name or what event it is and who is behind the scenes running it. We represent the city as a whole and the residents. And the more we can collaborate and work together as a team, the more success that we see as a city. And so just like these joint meetings, we have seen the value in working together. So thank you.
I want to follow up on what I said earlier. This is not about transparency. This is about control. I don't see this as more transparent. My concerns are valid, and I wouldn't say something unless I meant it. I do understand that the CRA and the city will work together and should work together. But we have a CRA that handles millions of dollars in tax incremental funding sources, development, and things of that nature. And I do think that it is too much for one person to do. We have a lot going on in the city, like I've said it before. And I think that it is too much power for one entity to have, to be in control of both the
Point of
city
order,
and the
Mayor.
CRA. I have
Point
the
of
right
order,
to
Mayor.
speak. I was elected to speak, and I have the right to speak.
Yeah, let's call it.
She's making accusatory remarks towards the city manager here.
I'm not speaking of any
You're saying it's too
individual in
much
their
power.
personal capacity. I'm saying it's too much power for any individual in that seat, whether it's
I think
Don
let's
Smith
just,
or another individual.
We're going to move
Well,
on.
well, I just want to say, because that type of language can really deter the public with a lot of misinformation.
This is my right to freedom of speech, which I have
Excuse me,
right
I'm
to do,
speaking.
and I was
Let's-
elected to speak.
I'm speaking.
I haven't finished speaking. If
Okay,
you
we're
allow me to
gonna-
finish
we're gonna-
speaking,
we're
then you
gonna
can
call
speak
this
yourself.
right now. We're going to call to order. We're going to stop this so that there are nothing derogatory.
I have
to our
made
city
no
manager.
derogatory comments about
gonna
anybody.
move on
I
at
have
this
nothing
point.
negative to say about the
Sorry.
city manager.
I'm
That
sorry.
is not what I said,
Just-
and my
I'm
words
sorry.
will not be
There is-
taken out
there
of
is a-
context.
There is a point of order, so we need to address that point of order. It can be approved or denied.
What's
but
the point of order?
typically
The point
he
of
called
order-
for a point of order, which means to move it to the vote.
Yes, so I'll make a motion to approve the ILA agreement.
Second.
I apologize. Can you specify in which capacity? We do need to do it twice.
Yes, so I will make a motion as the CRA board member to approve the ILA agreement as it sits in front of us.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second.
And quick for discussion, Chair, I just want to say, other cities do this. This is not an unprecedented thing. A lot of successful cities and
There's a
towns.
point of order.
Yeah, let's
Hey,
just
you
keep
gotta-
on, let's just call the vote. We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Question.
Motion.
I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. My take is, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this before I vote, is that we will still have the same,
I'm sorry, if we're, and it's nothing against you, Commissioner Gray, please don't, but if there is a point of order, that has to apply to everybody on the board equally, and I don't want to single out one person as being told they can't speak. So if we have a point of order, we have the motion.
right, but my point of order was a question about staffing.
I understand, but a point of order is to take it to a vote. We had a motion and a second.
I understand Robert rules, move on.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
I'll make a motion to pass the ILA agreement as it is in front of us as a city commission member.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Okay, moving on. The next item is the discussion and consideration of the Financial Oversight Project Plan. CRA Interim Executive Director, Mr. Duggar.
Thank you, Mayor. I have Director of Finance and CFO Alan Lawson. He's going to come up and he's going to speak a little bit about some of the proposed oversight, what we're looking at, and also he's going to also speak about H as well. So I don't know what the process as far as combining those two items, because they're going to flow together.
Good evening, CRA Board. So I produced a finance oversight project plan for the CRA for the audit. This is a very comprehensive audit that, is it turn on? Is that button there? Everybody's turning it off? Okay. The immediate next steps that I'm asking to do is basically, we've already engaged the legal counsel, which is step one. And then engage the financial team, which we'll start that tomorrow with the meeting with the team in the morning at 10 a.m. And then from there, we will begin to build that for the document preservation, which is critical, meaning that no record should be eliminated, deleted, or destroyed during this process. And then from there, we will go forward and obtain those and present the findings there to the actual board. With financial oversight and a fraud audit, we have the audit phase, which I'm expecting to be around, 6 days or so. But from there, this is essentially the project plan or the financial risk assessment that's going to take place over the next 2 weeks. From here, we will basically looking at detect, document, and remediate. So as we begin to look at the financials and situations, we will pressure test, either using statistics, looking at financial transactions, and then from there, we will document our findings. And then also when we document our findings, we will look at ways to remediate any exposure for taxpayer dollars. From there, we've already looked at several areas that are considered to be financial risk or fraud zones. This is standard in any sort of financial audit. But typically where we see it's in the P-card transactions, cash disbursements, and procurement fraud. Those are going to be the three main high areas because those are things that be the statistical ways that we'll be able to see any sort of transactions that actually fall out from a stat standpoint. What's low right now, we do know today that the payroll and the capital asset misuse, those are really low. We're not expecting anything there. But then we are going to look at the grant disbursements, the investment accounting, as well as the marina revenue. Here is the preliminary audit phase timeline, which is 10 days. I'm going to tell you that typically an audit of this transaction takes about 90 days. So there's going to be a lot of work. I'm assuming I will not sleep for the next 2 weeks, but this is basically much. We're engaging right now. The data collection will start tomorrow. We will begin to do the forensic analysis. I will be doing evidence gathering and some interviews, just trying to understand. From there, we will go to findings and reporting, and then from that, it'll be reform and remediation. I'm just continuing this dialogue around what's actually taking places through these phases, just giving the detail through phase one, phase two, obviously the engagement setup, giving the detail, formalizing that part, as well as the data collection. And then from here, these are just some of the touch points that we have for the forensic analysis as well as the fraud detection. In phases 4 and 5, these are the basic guidelines around the interviews and evidence, as well as the finding and the reporting, and then the remediation. So we will begin to immediately looking at, there are some quick hits that we have from a control standpoint. There also will be, if necessary, a recovery and any legal action. We'll make sure we also look at any sort of policy reviews and then ongoing monitoring how that's going to happen and establish those guidelines as we move forward on the remediation side. The key deliverables, as we kind of talked about, which is started out at the beginning of this presentation, relates around the engagement, the analysis, the findings, and then finally the remediation. These are just simply one of the preliminary findings that we had. Just on the P-card audit that we had, we realized that there were only 2 There were only 2 categories only from a policy standpoint for prohibited use. The city currently has 24 to 25. So we will be looking to incorporate those prohibited use going forward. That's really the main piece of the structure that we looked at over the last week with OIAA. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you.
Any
Would
questions?
any of my colleagues like to ask any questions? Yes,
I
sir.
have questions and comments as well. The CRA has just finished having their books audited. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, when I pick up, anybody can pick up what you all put out here tonight saying financial oversight and fraud audit. I'm just saying this is sending something to the public like you all are looking for something that might not be there. I don't like the word fraud. I'm like saying, maybe I'm reading too far, but it seems like somebody's trying to catch somebody doing something. I don't like the word. I could go with the oversight, but when you start using a word like fraud, I'm just saying, you make me think that you all are trying to find something that's not there. What's another word?
In 10 days, it's going to be very difficult to find fraud. What it is, it really comes down to activities where either policies aren't being followed or simple transactions that aren't happening. That's really what it's going to be about.
But
It's going to come down to controls. It's going to come down to controls, and are we following the controls? Are we counting the things with the money? How those transactions are being accounted for and recorded. Now, on an audit, the difference between having an auditor looks at making sure that the accounting is correct, right? We've had the audits for several years. I can tell you right now that there are no controls in place for certain activities that happen within that.
Okay, let me continue what I'm saying. From where I'm sitting at, sir, I'm going to be honest with you, and the way you're addressing us,
yes, sir.
the way you look to me, and you said fraud audit. You look like you're somebody that's like really want to shoot, do something bad. I'm just saying, I don't like the word fraud. I'm just saying there's another word we could use in there. I'm just saying because it's sending the wrong message to the citizens.
That's fair. We could take the word out. Huh? Risk management?
Yes, sir.
It's really around a risk assessment.
Yeah, because
That's
I'm just
fair.
saying that this gets in the wrong hands.
That's fair. No, I agree.
Yes, it's thank you.
Sir.
I will change that document, update it to make sure that says risk, and I will get any words in that document that says fraud.
Thank you. Maybe it's the hat that I'm not getting, but I'm getting there.
Take the hat off and try that again. Thank you, Mayor. So I think, when you look at the charts, there's comparisons, controls, and policies on one side. I think it's fair with taxpayer dollars. We would want those same controls and policies on any taxpayer dollars. So
That's what really the audit is about, Commissioner.
Yeah,
That's what the audit is about.
Yeah, so I think for the public to know, this is just a conversation around instilling policies to make sure that, the way tax dollars are treated in the city are done on the same way, in the same fashion as the CRA, from my understanding. And then that way there's controls, there's policies, because if there is mismanagement, there's no policies, no one's doing anything wrong, because there's no policy or guideline, to have someone adhere to. So it wouldn't, there's no accountability, there's no guideline. And so I think it's important to have those put in place, especially, if we're doing that, in the capacity of the city as well. So I just want to make sure that, kind of piggyback a little bit what Commissioner McCray was saying, is that this is just financial oversight. We're just making sure that, we do establish policies that are streamlined amongst both organizations, so that way there's no questions about, we do this here, but we don't do this here. The taxpayer dollars protected equally at both organizational levels.
I want to make a comment. Taxpayer dollars have been protected, and we have had a finance director the entire time in the CRA. We also have had an outside audit that has come clean every single year that I've been sitting on this board. So I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you.
Board Member Kelly, before we wrap this up.
No, I just for in my city hat, and I guess even technically my CRA, Alan, you have recently, like all of the P card policies are all fairly new within the last, I would say 6 months on the city side, because you saw a significant misuse, and not necessarily anyone doing anything that they shouldn't be doing, or just, it becomes the norm. It becomes the routine that I'll just use my P card for that, and instead of procuring it in a more financially sound way or in a more responsible way. And so I know that on the city end, you have done that to create these policies to make sure that all of the departments citywide are not just taking the easy route and ordering their stuff off Amazon because they need it tomorrow, and are actually procuring items and being more responsible with the taxpayer dollar, if we're talking about the taxpayer dollar. So I understand the concerns and the hesitancy and the pushback, but there has to be a policy in place, not for the people who are doing it right.
Yep.
But it's just just to have a policy in place, so that there is a mechanism to establish how things should be done, so that they're the most fiscally responsible for the taxpayer dollar that we're spending.
And Commissioner, to add to what you're saying, so for that example, right, so we started here, we had 190 P cards. Those have come down dramatically just within the city. And then I think the spend roughly was, $130,000, $140,000 a month. That has dropped down to $60,000 to $80,000 a month. What that does is when you put these policies in place, it forces you to go through the procurement process. You centralize that piece of activity through a centralized, and we have folks that do that. We do it through the warehouse, through Mike Dotta's team, right? In that time, he has already doubled the amount of deliveries and orders that he does for the city, based upon the secure pricing that we have that our, Andrew R. has done for us over the last while. It's just following that process, getting it in place, and making sure we're all moving in the same direction. And the CRA should be able to benefit from that same policy, and pricing as well.
Yeah, we
And
probably
so we
saved
have
close
these
to
policies in
$500,000 just in P card spends and stuff by doing these audits. So it's never a bad thing. And anytime the OIG comes into us, even if they don't find anything, the number one recommendation that they put at the bottom of their findings is they recommend enacting a policy to govern the employees by. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, is provide structure.
Right.
And 90% of the time is people just don't know they're not supposed to do stuff. Yeah, that's usually what it is. It's 90% of the time is people just don't know. I didn't know that was a policy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there's no further discussion, would any of my colleagues like to make a motion?
Where are we?
Do we
9G.
need a motion for this?
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve consideration of the financial oversight plan.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on.
And then we have
A motion on number H as well, please. Thank you.
Motion to approve the revised purchasing card policy as presented.
Second.
I have not been able to review this policy. It was added today. Thank you. For the record, I don't know if anybody else did.
We have a motion on the table and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. If there is nothing else from my colleagues tonight, I would like to have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. We will need about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to change over for our city meeting.